Let's bring in Peter McGuire from XM, who joins us live at the desk this morning. Peter, a pleasure to have you on board. Thank you. Talk us through exactly what's going on there. There was a lot of moving parts, I guess. It kind of relates in with what's going on in the oil price.
Absolutely.
A lot of negative moves there. Paint a bit of a picture.
John Bolton, US, and the president has one agenda, and that is, I think in some ways, to cripple Iran. Those sanctions, they've come into play now. They've been in the best part of about 4 or 5 days. And moving forward, how does it affect it politically, economically, and what does it do to the fabric of Iran? Next side of it is, who's going to take up the slack as far as and it could be a very interesting point moving into the China trade talks, but who's going to take up that slack? We've got 8 countries that used to buy Iranian crude. Is China going to play ball as far as those sanctions? They're going into Washington over the next 24 hours that they arrive there, or next 12 hours. So how does that move? And if they do continue to purchase Iranian oil, I'm sure that that's not going to be a sweet spot for the president. So I think there's further downside. Crude's had a little bit of a washout, and possibly it'll go down further with these trade talk issues.
Well, that's it. Obviously, the downward move in oil prices has also been exaggerated because of the trade situation. What are you making of it all playing out and the sell-off that we're seeing across the board?
You know, people don't realise, but the Chinese market peaked at around about 4,100 odd, going back about 3 weeks. It's down at about 3,700, so it's down 11% in 3 weeks. And I think there's further downside there for the Chinese market. Hong Kong will do similar. Probably our dollar will play the same sort of game. And the reasoning is quite simple. President Trump has an agenda, the 3 T's. Tariffs, Trump and Twitter. He wasn't prepared to go to the press and do anything on Sunday. It was just straight out, I'm going to hit these guys up. He's got, I think, positive support if you go to the far right as far as Steve Bannon. Have a look what Mnuchin's saying. Have a look at Lighthizer and the likes of Larry Kudlow and Peter Navarro. So that's his stable. And what China possibly presents itself over the next 12 to 15 hours is going to be a fascinating talk and dialogue. So I think there's going to be a very volatile week ahead. Well,
it looks like they will still go ahead with their visit to Washington, because that was also a big risk if they actually pulled out of it. That wouldn't be a good sign, right? So we're hoping for more progress.
Well, you've got to get off the plane, Leanne. You've actually got to arrive, and people can say, well, he's on his way. Well, you know, the bags didn't come or something like that. So when they get there, and then what happens and what transpires in those meetings is going to be very evident. But I think the president's got, in some ways, an upper hand at the moment. China doesn't want to play ball, by the sounds of it. They're very protracted. And the issue to play is that what happens as far as economic growth in 2020 because of the president being a re-election campaign. So he doesn't need a handbrake to the Dow. Dow was down nearly 500 overnight. I think it was over that, and then it bounced from the lows. So, you know, it's not a good position, and I think that sell-off will probably continue over the next matter of days.
And does that feed into us here in Australia as well? Just how much of an impact does it have?
I think it's probably going to knock us down maybe a few percent. I wouldn't be surprised by Friday you'd be down 2 or 3%. Look, it may not, but I feel as though that momentum, you know, we've had a pretty good rally and probably a little bit of profit taking, and the uncertainty as far as trade talks and what happens. This could get very nasty. A lot of people don't understand the power of what I think President Trump's trying to put together, and it could very much end in a full-scale trade war.
In particular for commodities, is that the place that would be hardest hit for us here in Australia? Because obviously we're so commodities export-driven and dependent.
It's got to be. I mean, you know,
hardest hit sector?
Well, I think it's got to be. Yeah, I can't see it hitting, you know, banks and that. But very much the commodity side, and you know, US farmers are really under the whip at the moment. So I think that'll be to the Australian miners a similar mindset. You know, how much you see a sell-off as far as the mining industry, it's very much a work in play. You can't speculate because we don't know the true facts of what's going to happen, but I think May is going to be a very fascinating month. If the president doesn't get actions and a reaction from China, then it's going to be one hell of a month as far as vol.
Excellent. Peter McGuire, thank you so much. Appreciate your analysis and for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne.
Peter McGuire there from XM.